As a manager, you play a major role in the career growth and development of your employees. In fact, you are the single most important piece to their development puzzle, given your ability to assign them work, give feedback, and support them through navigating challenges in the workplace. This is especially true for managers of junior staff members or those who have just entered the workplace. Unfortunately, a lot of managers don't put a lot of thought into how they support the growth and development of their employees, often saving these conversations for mid-year or annual development reviews as mandated by the organization, or by sending their employees to predetermined training courses. While these approaches still offer some benefit to the employee, there is much more that you can be doing as a manager to help your people grow and develop much quicker and with more enthusiasm. Consider this as well. When I ask clients what the top attributes of the best managers they've ever had are, almost all make some reference to their manager playing an active and supportive role in their development. I'd be surprised if your best ever manager didn't also do the same for you. Given the value employees place on this and the benefits that come along with it for both the employee and the organization, why is it that so many managers lack in this space? My experience has shown that the perception is that it takes up too much time to continually support employee development, and that their role as manager is not to focus on that, but instead on getting results. The reality, however, is that if done correctly, the time investment for managers is minimal and that the benefits are significant, such as higher engagement from staff, increased loyalty, greater ability to perform their roles and subsequently take on more complex and demanding work, which ultimately leads to greater results. To help you better navigate supporting the development of your staff members, there are two key connection opportunities you can leverage. The first of which is dedicated development conversations, such as in regular one-on-ones or at predetermined intervals such as monthly or quarterly check-ins. Or two, in conversations where employees come to you looking for help to solve a problem. Let's start with dedicated conversations. As you will or have seen in the video on how to have effective one-on-ones, they are a great opportunity to invest time in development conversations with your employees. In this section, we will talk about how to actually have those conversations. We'll approach this as if no conversations around development are taking place to date, including those often mandated by the organization at larger employers, so that you can see what the entire process can look like from start to finish. The first step is to give the employee a heads up that you'd like to have a career development conversation with them in your next one-on-one or in a dedicated meeting, ideally with at least a week's notice. Have them come prepared to talk through two potential areas of focus. Number one, growth within their role, and or number two, career development. Ideally, they will come with specific time-bound goals and development plans under each category. Note, however, that depending on how tenured and experienced the employee is, the conversation may be entirely centered on one area of focus over the other, and that is totally fine. For more tenured and seasoned staff, the focus will likely be more career growth oriented, whereas with more junior staff, the conversation will likely be more focused on growth within the role. For these discussions, you should also come prepared to add in any gaps or growth opportunities that you see for the employee, limiting them to the most pertinent gaps so as to not overwhelm them. The other ask for the employee is to put together a written plan to be shared in your meeting for each goal on how they plan to accomplish it, which may include articulating what they need from you as their manager to help them as needed. During the initial conversation, let the employee walk you through where they feel they want to grow within their role or career and the development plan for each goal. If they did not factor in timelines to their development goals, ensure you are asking them when they want to accomplish these goals by, as that can make a large difference in the action steps they take. Then you can of course share your feedback on their goals, challenge them if you feel it's appropriate, or validate them as needed. Then you will ask the employee to revise their development plan based on your feedback as a takeaway from the conversation. Once the revisions to the document have been made by the employee, ensure a finalized copy is sent to you. What you now have is a living document that you can use as a basis for ongoing development conversations on a regular basis, be it weekly, monthly, quarterly, or biannually. The more junior the staff member and or the more short-term the development areas are, the more frequent the check-in discussions will be. At those future discussions, be mindful that it is good to check in on whether or not the goals and development areas are still the right ones to be focusing on, or if something new needs to be added. Remember, this is a living document and people change over time, so anticipate that what you end the year with will likely be different than what you started with. Now let's look at conversations when employees come to you for support. This avenue for developing employees often goes overlooked, which is unfortunate as these conversations happen all the time, usually on a weekly if not daily basis. These situations tend to arise in a few different ways. The first being that an employee connects with you informally outside of a regular meeting for help to solve a problem. Secondly, the employee sets up a dedicated time in your calendar specifically to solve a problem. or 3 in regular one-on-ones when employees are talking through their challenges or giving updates. What typically happens in these conversations is that the employee feels stuck on a problem and is looking for guidance on how to overcome the obstacle that's in front of them. What the vast majority of managers do is simply give them the answer. Then the employee goes off and executes the response and the task or problem gets completed. Sounds great, right? While this absolutely does provide value to the employee and helps get them unstuck in a timely manner, it does not usually help the employee grow or learn. In reality, what typically happens is that it conditions the employee over time to seek help and guidance to overcome challenges and to become dependent on you as their manager to solve their problems. If you have a larger team, this can take up a significant amount of your time if each employee is constantly coming to you for support. So what's the alternative? In its most basic form, the solution is to put it back on the employee to come up with the path forward on their own before you give them the answer. The idea here being that we are challenging them to think critically about how they can overcome the obstacle, which in turn helps them develop greater knowledge and a deeper understanding of the topic and an ability to problem solve more effectively on their own moving forward, ultimately helping them become more independent. We can encourage this behavior by doing a few things. The first of which is asking the employee what they have done so far to solve for their problem or what steps they have taken to find out the missing information. Secondly, you can ask them what their potential solution is to the problem or what they think their next steps are. In the event they cannot answer either of these questions, it is very important that you ask the employee to reflect on these questions and only come back to you once they are able to answer them. You may find that some employees have not yet tried anything to solve for their problems, but are coming to you with the proposed path forward they want to validate. This is not a problem necessarily, as they have thought through how they will overcome their challenge and are simply seeking validation. Ideally though, we want them to only have to come to you once they've tried something to help move the needle forward, but are still stuck. Of course, there are exceptions to this, which we will get to later on in this video. You may find that employees have a hard time answering these questions and that some may even get frustrated and respond back to you saying that they don't know the answer to these questions, which is why they're coming to you in the first place. In these instances, it is very important that you do not give them the answer to the questions, as these are clear signs of a developmental opportunity for the employee. Instead, take a neutral tone and simply ask them to think it through as you like to see what their thought process is. You may even give them feedback in the moment that you often find them coming to you for answers to things you think they are able to come up with on their own, and that you of course will help them if they are truly stuck, but that they need to take ownership over the path forward. While it may be hard in the moment to not give the solution to the employee's problem, long term you should expect to see much more independent and autonomous workers. If you do give in and answer their questions, you are reinforcing to them that they can continue to come to you for solutions. So once they come to you with the proposed path forward after they tried some things out on their own that haven't worked as they'd hoped, the next step is to provide them with feedback on their ideas by either validating their approach, offering up other considerations, or asking probing questions to help them fill in any missing pieces, or course correct if they are way off and provide some coaching on the right way. Beyond encouraging the employee in the moment to think critically about how they intend to solve their problems, you can also take a more proactive approach at either a team meeting or in a one-on-one conversation and set the expectation that moving forward, when they come to you for support, that you want them to be able to answer your two questions. What have you done to solve so far? And what are you planning to do to solve? If they cannot answer these two questions, you will be pushing it back on them to solve for on their own before providing them with support. By taking this approach, your employees will not be caught off guard when you do ask them these questions. Of course, you can always share the why behind this expectation, especially if this is a long-standing problem. Once the expectation has been set, if employees continue to come to you without answers to your questions, this then becomes a great opportunity to provide targeted feedback and or to be integrated into their development plan. While the collective approach of putting it back on the employee to try to solve for their own problems is usually appropriate, there are a few instances where it is not. The first of which is if there is no way the employee would know where to find the answer, especially if you are the gatekeeper to the information. The second one is if it's the employee's first time going through something complex and challenging, such as a new process or working on something with lots of moving parts. The third one is with employees who are learning, are new to the role, or being trained on something. Lastly, with very sensitive and high impact projects or initiatives where you want oversight before actions are taken. In these instances, you don't want them to try anything before coming to you, but rather you want to see their path forward before they start. In summary, there are two main opportunities for coaching and developing your team members: in dedicated conversations or when employees reach out for support. Regardless of whether we can pre-plan and come prepared, or if there's an informal discussion taking place, one common thread that applies to both discussion formats is the value of putting it back on the employee to own the prospective path forward as much as possible. If done properly, you will see both your employees' development and their confidence take off. Don't be overly forceful, however, and remember that you still have a role to play in filling in the gaps and taking a more hands-on approach when the situation calls for it. The key is to be intentional. Use your judgment and to communicate clearly with your employees on your expectations, be it through coming prepared for a targeted development conversation or being solution-oriented when coming to you for support. With that, I hope you now feel much more prepared and comfortable to support your employees' development.